over here. My name is Ben Boyce. I'm a rapping machine. I used to drink Diet Coke with no caffeine. They said Pepsi is the choice of the new generation. Well, I'm pretty new and I'm not a tastin'. That was my first rap I ever composed back in the late 80s when I was 11. And that was how you rapped back then, before this whole like multiple analysis, analysis, multiple variant rhyming schemes that go cross ways across the rhyming line. I'm going to pop out the chat. You guys feel free to start talking to me. And I'm going to minimize this so I don't have to look at myself in low latency. Ugh, I don't like myself in low latency. It's very confusing. You over there. Hello. Hyla. Freestyle iambic. Oh. You know what? Can I go talk to you guys for a bit about poetry? I never knew what... Wait, hold on. Oh, hold on. Am I clipping? Does my audio sound fine? Let me know. It looks a little hot. I'm going to put it down just a bit. Let me know. Keep me alert and aware of my audio quality. But it's live, and I'll have to repeat that. So you, 10 lucky guests, can tell me if you can hear me okay. Wendy, I took this hat from my girlfriend's closet. My girlfriend, she's got all the clothes, and I got all the books. And never the twain shall meet, unless my clothes are stuffed in the book pile sometimes, because I'm like that with laundry. I was going to say something about poetry, about iambic pentameter. So I kind of like vaguely knew what iambic pentameter was, but then in my last year of going to the Evergreen, attending, the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, which is very near to where I am, I worked on my final project, which I intended to be the finalist of all final projects at Evergreen State College. Evergreen State College is very independent, project-minded, and so I wanted to like crush the competition, which is, of course, all in my head. And little did I know, Evergreen would have a meltdown, and I would spend the next year producing, I think we're around 50 or 60 hours of content about the place. So this like YouTube thing is my super duper project. But anyways, I started doing this project, and this project is about this character that I've been writing since I was a teenager. After I gave up rapping, I started writing, and I used this guy named Thomas Winters as my pen name. And so this book, this is like the 5th or 6th time I tried to write this book. And if I was prepared, I'd show you the very first time that I tried to write this book, but I didn't. Anyways, so this is the story of Thomas Winters and the fictional entity that is haunting him and preparing him to write an epic poem. So it's not just a story about a writer, but it's a story about a writer's genius. And I mean genius in the whole like root meaning of the word, like the jinn or the genie, that which haunts the writer. Not the muse. The muse is external. The genie is like behind the author, whereas the muse would be in front, evoking the author. But the genius is pushing the author. So anyways, Thomas has to go through all these various different forms of literature. He's got to write mythology, fairy tale, romance, speculative fiction, plays, operas. And while I was writing this, I had to start actually like doing my homework about the writing styles of poets. And I happened upon iambic pentameter, especially blank-versed iambic pentameter. And I fell in love with the stuff. I absolutely fell in love with the stuff. So at the very end of this book that someday I will publish, or hopefully get somebody to publish me, is just about 200 pages of iambic pentameter in blank verse. And it's about the very final story, which is the ultimate story that Thomas has been prepared for over the course of the 4 years of his college education. That story is about the oldest son of Adam and Eve and their third daughter. And the oldest son, his name's Anwas, and he decides that he doesn't want to go to heaven as it's created. He wants to create his own heaven. And so what Anwas does is he goes through and he masters every level of his being, from matter to the vegetable to the animal to the human to the higher human, the superhuman. And he goes through a process of transmogrifying himself into an entity of pure volition. And he's the one who founds the pantheons of the gods. And not to be spoilery, the eldest or the third daughter of Adam and Eve, she undergoes an extreme amount of pain and ends up killing herself. And because her soul is so close to the source of where humans come from, she keeps on being invited back into life to not kill herself. And she's given the option to not kill herself, and she keeps on killing herself. And so the third daughter of Adam and Eve, she ends up being reborn throughout all of time, over and over and over again. And so her lineage or her story takes place in every different genre of literature, from mythology to fairy tale to the romance, or the epic, the romance, then the modern fictions, the novel, and then the science fiction, and then the postmodern fictions. So that's enough about that. Let's look at what you all are saying. Rochelle, Schoonover, I hope to see you soon, man. Let me know when you are in town. Let's hang out. I just want to let you guys know that if you are in the Olympia area, in a couple of weeks, I will be hosting a centrist salon for people who like me. And hopefully the people who absolutely hate me don't find out about this, but if they do, it's probably my just desserts, and they can come and protest us or whatever. So you guys should show up, especially if you have muscle or mace or wit, because that's the only thing that's going to defeat my enemies, who aren't really my enemies. If they are my enemies, it's probably because I made a mistake in not treating them correctly, even within the domain of criticism. What type of hat am I wearing, Michael asks. I have no idea. Like I said, I found this in my girlfriend's closet. I try not to repeat myself, but one can only keep so many hats around. And so this is the hat that I had. As you guys can see, I really need a haircut, but I haven't wanted to be going into town to get a haircut, but it's high time that I did. So we're wearing a hat to awesome. Your girlfriend has good taste. Thanks, Wendy. You guys should meet, do gardening activities, and cook. Not that she's the one who cooks, but she's really good at cooking. I try to cook. I'm not as good as her. All right. Michael, you said something about the genius, and not the muse, but I don't see that. Rufus Dark. Okay, let's do a little bit of tech support. Let me know, am I coming through clearly? Am I sketchy? Do I need to fuss with my settings? Do I need to fuss with my audio? Do I sound like chocolate? Because that's what I want to sound like. Do I look like, what do I want to look like? I don't know. Talking about my looks, there's this thing right here. You guys see this guy? It's my lucky tooth. It's right there. It makes me look ugly, and I know that. I had a spate of people criticize my teeth and want me to go to an orthodontist, and I think that they're secretly orthodontists who want me to spend my money on them. But this, I've had this thing as long as I've been a toothed being. I had this guy, and I like it. It keeps me honest. It keeps me imperfect. I think perfection is something to aspire to, but not to be. And maybe that's just an excuse, right? I do need to keep on bleaching my teeth because I'm addicted to coffee, and don't tell anybody this, tobacco, but I need to bleach my teeth. That's on me. That's on me. But this guy, it's my lucky tooth. Nobody has this tooth. It's me. It's mine. I'm not going to change it. I desaturated myself. You guys don't mind. I can resaturate myself. Kaiko says that I'm sepia-toned. I don't feel sepia-toned, but I did desaturate myself, and I have a lot of sharpness on. Maybe I should decrease the sharpness so you guys don't need to look at how much I need to shave. Here, let's fiddle around with that. Okay, we'll boost up the saturation, and we'll delimit, if that's even a word that I'm using correctly, the sharpness. So you guys let me know how this feels to you. We're going to go up here, over here, and then we're going to decrease the sharpness. Ooh, look at me. Oh, I'm so smooth. And then where's my saturation? Okay, let's go up here. You guys like that? You can see my blue eyes. My one trait that is kind of romantically inspired by what, I don't know, the act of my parents creating me as their firstborn child, perhaps. I don't know why I'm holding this beer aloft. I should drink it. Good morning from Australia. Ms. See, I never pronounce your names, but I know you by sight. Alosan. Miss Alosan. Alekin. You're great. Love your participation. Dysposium. You're cool. My cats will be scratching on the door for food, and I'll snatch them and put them in your faces if that's what you guys want. All right, Shap does nuts. I don't know what that means, Heimdall. All right, I should probably start talking about something. This beer is a Fremont Summer American Pale Ale. It's kind of nutty. If I drink too many of these before dinner, and it's before dinner, that's why I started this, because I knew I would be drinking for this, and I need to get food in my belly about an hour after I start drinking this, or else things get really weird. But I usually drink their IPA, which is super citrusy. It's not Citrus Mistress. I mean, what is? But their IPA is pretty great. I think it's called Interurban, but me and my girlfriend call it Intrabroughton because she mispronounced it once, and so that's what we call it. We do that thing that couples do, that when Siri autocorrects something completely out of the blue, you just start using that word as a sendochi for, and I know that's not what it is, but you use it as a placeholder for the actual thing. Like we call tapas burritos because one of us tried to spell tacos, but it came out tapas, and so we just call anything that's burritos or tacos or nachos tapas now. And that holds true with many other things that we talk about, as I'm sure all you who have intimate relationships, whether it be a partner or a friend, I don't know why I keep on doing this, probably have inside jokes. It's just something that us humans do. All right, Zompt, you have a good night. This will be up tomorrow. You can watch it. Tentatively freestyle rap from the 16th century. I could read part of my book. I'm getting ready to publish a section of this book because I'm going to Germany. I'm very fortunate. Somebody sponsored me to go to Germany in July, where I'm going to go to a congress with my spiritual group, which is called Subud, S-U-B-U-D, and they're having their 15th International Congress. And so I'm printing up one part of this story. I'm going through and I'm correcting it when I know I should be working on the Evergreen documentary, which is a really big project. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I just have to do it. Rabid to cat, intimate relations with good beer. I know, Germany, right? It's right next to Switzerland. It's close to Zurich. Do I have a personal 5-year plan? Ben Nichols, my personal 5-year plan is to be celebrating 5 years from now the anniversary of you repeating that or asking me that question. Which I'm totally ripping that off, if you guys get that reference. Michael. Michael, about Syracuse, upstate New York, Syracuse University, I didn't get as much footage as I wanted. I did not dive far enough into that story as I should have, and probably if I can find a treasure trove of the documents, I would like to go through the documents and stuff. Why I interviewed Stuart Card is because my awesome, I will neglect to mention her nationality now, my awesome secret Twitter friend, she's like my best friend that I've only interfaced with in a dark themed Twitter DM mode, but she's like my best friend for that format. She sent me Stuart's open letter, and I read it into the internet, and then he graciously decided to speak with me. And, you know, the thing is that when you talk to people that you don't know, you never heard, he didn't have any videos on the internet. I had no idea how it would go, but fortunately, he was a professor, so he knew how to talk, and he's an engineer, so he had a lot of bullet points for the whole thing. I thought that was a great discussion. I did get some feedback from that discussion that I wanted to talk about. It's kind of interesting. Somebody kind of takes me to task for repeating myself and being anti-SJW and not really diving into the subtleties of why people are attracted to the SJW mindset. And he made some really great points, and let's see if I can pull that up and maybe read a part of it to you guys. Just a second. While I'm looking this up, I'm going to tell you guys that when I'm in traffic, as I am a lot, actually, no, when I'm not driving for work, so I drive for work, I won't say exactly what, you guys can probably figure it out, but when I drive for work, I get pissy at bad drivers, right? Like I get kind of frustrated with bad drivers when I'm on the clock and I'm driving on the clock, but because I'm in a professional setting, somehow I don't get really mad. I just do this hand wave thing, like, right? I'm just like, but when I'm in my little, like, not a speeder thing, but kind of like little sedan thing, it's not a hatchback, it's a sedan. I had to talk to the DMV about that. When I'm in that on my personal private time and people are being jerks, especially when they're being really slow and they don't have to be, because this is Olympia and people are like slow in Olympia. It's slow Olympia. It's really insane. Instead of getting angry at some point just to make sure that my spirituality is not harmed by my anger when I'm driving, I make up songs. Instead of cussing, I make up songs. So I have a stash of songs. One of the songs that I have for, and sorry about this, you guys can make fun of me. One of the songs I have is about the most underrated sign in all of American signage on the road. It goes, oh, how does it go? Oh, crap, I can't think of it now. What's the sign that everybody ignores? Oh, yeah. Keep right instead to pass. Keep right except to pass. Keep right except to pass. I don't know why that's so difficult for people to understand. If you're not the fastest person on the road, you should be in the right lane. And if you need to pass somebody, you speed up to the speed of traffic to pass them. You don't remain 2 miles per hour ahead of the person you want to pass. You just put you put a little bit of gravity. That's all you need. It's just like a little bit of pressure on that gas pedal. And then you just go. You pass. Or keep right. Except to pass. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but Crisscross, like I was saying, Crisscross gave me some good feedback. You know, he could have maybe worded it differently. And he basically repeats himself, but he really goes on at length about what he's talking about. So with the Stuart Card interview, he replies, I'm just going to read this. The bottom line is this. There is judging and there is understanding. And Benjamin Boyce and his Richard Nixon quoting guest in this video and his Marxist belittling Sicilian messenger boy, Jordan Peterson, they're long on judging, but they're woefully short on understanding. Put yourself in the shoes of a black person at, say, Syracuse University, Benjamin, where a group of good old boys talk about hating niggers. Oh, sorry, you don't want to talk about that, do you? You never do. But if you did, you might come to understand instead of judge, quote unquote, capital T, the, capital O, other. It's really not a problem for you, is it? Groups, who needs them? You're too busy reacting and judging and pointing your finger at what you see as dumb people, dumb groups, their intellects, needless to say, much lower than yours. In short, you guys are the real gift to the right. In fact, wait a minute, you are the right. The reactionary right that sells up identity politics and the nonsense of the SJ movement as a straw man. Well, as a straw man. All the better to ignore or otherwise marginalize a structural first-order view of the political system. Now, I can go through and I can argue against him. One, I really appreciate it that he took the time to write this out and point out that, yeah, and I am sensitive to this, that I do a lot of criticizing, right? I probably do not do enough work understanding why people are attracted to the SJ movement, the social justice movement. And Crisscross is very explicit that he's a leftist. He says he's a leftist, but he's very much disapproves of the social justice mentality. And I appreciate that he's bringing that up. And I would like to understand more about those who I critique, those who are caught in the gravity well of the identity politics, or whatever it is. So I have a lot of work to do on that front. I admit that. I have a dearth of understanding of why people are actually attracted to this stuff. Take, for instance, people who are in the black community and who are poor and who are from probably from a heritage that involves some very abusive relationships between them and the dominant culture, so to speak. There certainly are motivations for them to be attracted to social justice, identitarian, authoritarian politics. Like I talked about with Coleman Hughes, probably one of my best, or at least my better interviews, talking about the mentality of the culture. And I can do a lot more work investigating why that culture is taken by critical race theory. I still think that critical race theory is an easy out. I do. I think it's heavily perverse. Every time I read about it, every time I look at the workshops that they do, it's atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. I have a physical reaction to it, but I need to understand why there's a physical reaction in the other direction. I need to do that. So, Ben C. Okay. So I was just riffing, and I have to decide whether to hide or show these messages. I hope you guys didn't use the N-word. And I accidentally deleted these. Okay, this is really difficult to do. All right. It's a cheat code for social power. Critical race theory. It is. It's a cheat code for social power. And what motivates one to use that cheat code? But my whole critique is about the cheat code itself. And to show that not only does it inspire people to cheat, but it actually motivates the most cheating behavior, regardless or irrespective of race, of ethnicity, of, all the different things that put you together as an identifiable person or an identitied entity. There's something inherent in this, in this way of thinking, that is prone to abuse and prone to adulating abusers. So that's my critique. And if I really do want to be a part of stopping it, I need to understand the good intentions that lead people into it. So that's what I was going to say. Ben C., what are you saying? Good God, he loves to talk. It's a live stream. I'm alone. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Love you, Ben C. You're like my vitamin C of Ben. Okay. Quality of outcome. Might it be some type of Oedipal complex extension or extrapolation into society? Okay. So are you speaking of the rabid cat, T-cat? What is this Oedipal complex? Are we talking about the mother? Are we talking about the man who accidentally kills his father and marries his mother? And if you look at that story, you'll see that actually the mother and the father kind of set him up for this destiny, right? They set him up to eventually murdering his father and marrying his mother by trying to dissuade him from killing his father and marrying his mother, right? There was a prophecy about Oedipus. He was laying out on a rock. There was something, okay, to bring up my foot again. There was something wrong with Oedipus's foot, right? He had like a clay foot, something weird like that, or a hoof foot. So he was lame in some way. And they laid him out on a rock, but he was picked up by some shepherds and then ferreted to another kingdom, and he became a prince somewhere else. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then he eventually he learns about the prophecy. Oh no, I don't want to marry my mother and kill my father, so I'm going to go away, right? So he runs away from the problem into the maws of the problem. Something happens really interesting. My favorite part of the story is that there's this Sphinx that Oedipus defeats. And I don't know if I can riff on this. I've thought about this a lot. Like the Sphinx is the transition point from fleeing, from being thrown out of the prophecy and then fleeing from the prophecy back into the prophecy. And at that juncture, that V spot, let's say, well, it's a crossroads. There's three roads, right? There's an intersection of three roads. So maybe it's like this. I can't do that with the way that my hands are set up. But there's three roads, and at this crossroads, this intersection, let's say, of three roads, he ends up doing something with the Sphinx and then killing his father. Right? I'm probably wrong about this. Probably getting it all juggled. So, back to social justice. I mean, when we think about Oedipus, we think about the attraction to the feminine, attraction to the primordial feminine, attraction to the feminine that gave us our body. And it's very uncomfortable to think about this. I remember, I won't get into that. I won't get into my own Oedipal phase. I had a phase where I had to struggle with the feminine, where I decided instead of falling in love with a woman, I would just fall in love with not women, but woman, capital W, woman. I would fall in love with woman, so I wouldn't have to deal with all the drama of managing a bunch of women, because there's a lot of drama there, especially if you have somebody who, whenever he has intimate relationships with a woman on a physical level, they somehow end up entering and dwelling in his heart, and then he has a bunch of women in his heart. Now, that's just me. This is 20 years ago, 22 years ago when I was at this juncture, and I had psychological dream interactions with the feminine, and having to go through a process of refining my relationship through desire to women, to woman, in order to actually have a real relationship with a woman that wasn't abusive, that wasn't flighty, that wasn't me running away from a specific woman. I had a very hard time being specifically in place and face-to-face with a woman, because that would bring up issues inside of myself that I'd rather not deal with. Just bad behaviors and bad habits and stuff like that. We're trying to get to SJWs and Oedipus. Long story short, yes, in colleges, what you have, I've seen this pattern, you have a bunch of women who decided not to have children and made up a bunch of excuses, like they had alternative sexualities or alternative gender things, but basically they are women, but they don't want to take on the traditional role of becoming a mother, and so they, for whatever reason, they sever themselves off from producing a physical child, and this is the pattern that I've seen, and I'm widely speculating and being very stereotypical, but in colleges, you have a lot of women who don't have children, and so they can't get away from actually their mothering instinct, and so what they do is they turn the student body into their surrogate children. And because they're locked on wanting an infant and not going through the process of watching an infant grow, they end up infantilizing their students and not wanting them to grow. They're caught in a feedback loop of not being able to just let the child develop, but be overprotective, and then therefore restrain and stunt the growth of their surrogate children. And then they project that onto people of different races or whatever, or different subgroups, right? They find the group of people that they want to mother, and then they kind of hem in and be very mother bearish and destroy everybody who even slightly takes a wink at their little brood. So yes, I think in a sense there is an Oedipal thing, but it's coming from the Oedipal mother, and I'm a man, and I've researched the masculine interaction with the feminine, not necessarily the feminine interaction with the child so much, and that's that. Let's check in with the chat flow. Hi, Synthesizer Neil. How you doing? Like your profile pic. I love that your dog has a toque on, or a hat. It's a very small icon, so I can't be absolutely certain. Fragwagon. Yes, we do see that with capital M, capital L, Naima Low, who I don't really hold anything negative against. And I really feel, to a certain extent, she did get what she deserved. Naima Low did get what she deserved. And doubly so because she is a media professor, not understanding the power of media, right? That shows you just how much of a master she has over what she has a master's in, right? She's not understanding media and how it would portray her, and all the things she said. So yes, she definitely got to a certain extent what she deserved, but she's still a human being, and I still think that she does have something to offer. You know, I interfaced with Naima Low several times over the course of my 4.5 years at Evergreen. And I saw her, the first time I interacted with her, she was giving an orientation session that was very social justice-y, very kind of negative, right? And I was sitting there, I'm like, why are you teaching, resentment? Why? I mean, it's masked in social justice, but it's still resentment, right? Why are you teaching that? And I saw her move away from that. I absolutely did. A couple years later, I saw her do an orientation, and she was really chill, and she was bringing up her points, right? Her oppression points, and not in the like I win the oppression points, but like her points about oppression and about America and about whiteness, right? And she was being very generous. She's saying not everybody thinks this way, and she was making concessions, and it felt like she was actually being more of a human being with her social justice ideology. And then the next thing I know, Trump gets elected, and well, actually, the two kids get shot in Olympia. Andre and Bryson get shot in Olympia, and the switch is flipped for her. So I hope that she can find a place where she can grow and come to terms with things. And it's very unfortunate that a media major doesn't understand the permanence of media and of reputation and how that has affected her. And I wish we could just offer her forgiveness. I really wish we could, so she could build up and not be stuck in a dark cloud, because that's the thing. That's the thing. I researching protesters that I haven't made public, researching protesters that I have not made public because I don't want to be involved in doxing or anything like that. But you see that they had a lot of power for that 2 or 3 weeks where they had all the power, and now they're completely forgotten by all of their allies, right? They're completely bereft of friendships because they were operating in a dark cloud. The closest thing to the wisest man I've ever known said that you can hate God all you want because that can be changed in an instant, but if you hate other human beings, that forms a dark cloud around you that is almost impossible to get out of, and it completely separates you from progress. And that's the thing that I hate the most about social justice ideology. It empowers people to create division, and that has a negative effect on society as a whole, but it has a horrible outcome for the individual who gives themselves over to resentment. Talking a lot here. Let's talk to the chat field. Yulong says, Benjamin Boyce, hey, if you want to know what makes people go to social justice, I know Aiden Paladin has made some research videos on it with citation. That is very familiar. I'm sure I've checked Aiden out, but it's not coming to mind right now. This is me taking a break while you guys chat. I wonder what it's like to be Howard Stern or Rush Limbaugh. You just have to keep on talking and talking and talking, and every once in a while you can hit a recording of yourself talking about like Gold Bomb's medicated powder, and then like take a drink and pop a couple Quaaludes or whatever Rush pops nowadays, and then you get back to talking and talking and talking. It's kind of a weird thing. Since we're just talking, L.A. Jacksander, I am not drunk. When I'm drunk, my mouth doesn't work as well as it should. You can see that in some of my videos when I do too much of this on an empty stomach and I decide to press record. I have to do a bunch of more edits. I had an idea to talk about something. Oh, you guys gonna go see Kanye? I've been listening to Kanye. I've been listening to this song Power over and over and over again. There's something about it. And there's some faults in it. It's kind of like, it's not grubby. I mean, it's technically very proficient and it's very evocative, very powerful. But like about the last third of it, he's just like saying stuff that again is very egotistical. I'm like, okay, dude, you don't have to go there, but I guess we're going there. And I don't know the whole story arc you're going through, but I'll just like play along with you, man. But he does have some talent. He does have some talent, and I ignored him for a very long time. Thanks, Rufus. Dark, love you guys too. I had something to say about talking constantly. Oh yeah. So as you guys may or may not know, I spent I spent like 15 years on and off working in preschool. And I worked generally with 3 to 4 year olds or 3 to 5 year olds in actually preschool land. And then I was offered a full-time job working with toddlers. And that was preceded by me being very lost in my life. I was at a dead end artistically. I'd written about 2.5 million words. I spent my 20s writing 4 hours a day, every freaking day, except for like Sundays. I'd take a day off. I'd just go and I write for 4 hours or rewrite for 4 hours. And I just generated piles and piles and piles and piles, pages and words. And nothing ever worked, right? Because I had this impossible goal. I had this utterly impossible goal to write this impossible book, right? That's not for everybody. Actually, this is not going to sell at all. That's fine. I just had to write this thing, but I kept on failing. And then my external life failed. I lost my partner at that point, not my current partner, but my ex-partner, and I got totally stuck. I could not write at all. All I could do was go to work at the preschool and like play Play-Doh and tell stories to kids and then go home and play WoW. That's all I did. I just played WoW. I logged an insane amount of hours in WoW. It was like something like 90 days in like a year. Like I just played WoW. Crazy amounts. Unhealthy amounts. Anyway, so that kind of dead phase that I was in came to an end. And it was right around the time that I was 30. And I was obsessed with death. I was thinking about death all the time. I was just thinking about death. I'd lie in bed at night and just like wonder like what happens to my hearing when I die, right? What happens to my seeing when I die? Is it all extinguished? Or do I just keep on playing the same loop that I lived? You know, just like really obsessing with death. Anyway, so I was at this spiritual congress for my spiritual group, Subud, S-U-B-U-D. And I was just at a dead end. And I was just sitting in a circle and everybody's talking. And this 2-year-old kid walks into the middle of the circle. You know, because they're 2 and they don't know what else to do. She just waddles into the circle, and it's not like I saw any light. It wasn't transcendent at all. But like I just knew, like I just relaxed, like my whole being just like was quiet. And I watched this girl just walk into the center. I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do next. And then like 2 months later, I was hired as a toddler teacher. Right, 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds. Diapers, screaming, no words, no stories. Just freaking 2-year-olds. It's crazy. It was insane. It was full time too. I mean, the metric tonnage of human manure that these hams have dealt with has absolutely won me the prize of being able to deal with the manure that's happening at Evergreen, right? Like, I earned this. I earned the right to call people children. I earned it. Anyways, you know, I'm being egotistical, and that's a joke. But when I started that job, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, it's just like these kids don't talk. They don't have stories. They don't have narrative yet. What am I supposed to do? I'm a storyteller, right? And it just came to me. I don't know how it came to me, but like I had this sense. I had this sense that my job was just to be a radio. That was my job. It was just to be a radio and just babble. That's all my job was. And it turns out, like I read some research later on, I read some research that, and I don't want to be sexist or anything, but I think, you know, women are predisposed genetically to babble because that actually programs and it runs, it actually, all that babble, even though it doesn't make sense to the child, it starts making all these connections for language in the brain. So I just became a radio. And then I brought in a guitar and I wrote a few kids albums, wrote like something like 150 kids songs. You can find them on the internet if you're interested. They're horribly recorded, and I need to redo it. So, anyways, now I am a a talker now. Let's go back into what you guys are talking about here. Sorry, Bradley. You say something interesting. I'm going to scroll up to see if you say anything before what you say is interesting. Appeals to good, naive people equal opposite of Jordan B. Peterson Jung about shadow, guilt, and shame. Immature can remove those emotions and responsibilities, akin to Christian thought. Wasn't me, was possessed by demon. I don't have the context for that. And I'm scared to slow down and just read the entire scroll up to that. I'm just going to go to the bottom. You guys tell me what to talk about. It's talk on demand now here, so just tell me what you want to know, or you want me to pretend that I know something about. SJWs have no shadows. Jung at heart. Hey, Ben. What drove you to start making YouTube videos? All right, this is an easy story. And I think it's widely known among the 1,000 people who know it. Evergreen State College. I did a contract, which is like a self-directed study at Evergreen, to produce YouTube videos based on my narrative poetry. Now, I'm a poet, but it's all about story, right? I only do narrative poetry, right? I don't do like poetry that's not narrative. It's all based on story. Anyway, so I was doing a contract, memorizing poems, and then reading them into a camera. If you go back to my very, very earliest stuff on this channel, you just see this weird guy with too much hair on the top of his person talking into a camera ineptly and whatnot. So anyways, I had started this YouTube channel, like, 2 or 3 hits of video, depending on who else know me. And then Evergreen State College experienced a tremendous meltdown. And I just realized my microphone's not on, my good microphone. Evergreen State College underwent like that protest that happened last year, and I'll do a documentary that summarizes the whole thing. It's not going to be a summary. It's going to be one of those Netflix things that goes on for a few episodes, but I'm going to try to do it, right? And it's not going to be like a fancy documentary that's going to win me any awards, because I'm not going to be doing like that character study. I mean, there are going to be characters in there, but it's going to be fact. It's going to be just a research document. Anyhow, so Evergreen State College underwent a massive amount of institutional stress, led by some protesters, and facilitated by the administration, even though they completely deny it. Anyway, so Evergreen, the students protested. They made a bunch of videos with their freaking cell phones, running around out of mine, right? And it was all in vertical video. The entire thing was in vertical video, right? But it was crazy. And the week after the protests, the end of the week of the protests, I'm in a class. I get railed on for being white. And accused of all this stuff just for being a white man. And that was already in the pool of Evergreen. People are always dissing on white men in the abstract, but then it was personal. It was utterly personal. Anyway, so I go to work, and I was working on campus, and it was the weekend. And I enter campus, and I could hardly breathe. And this is just me. I'm woo, I'm foofy, whatever. It's just me. But I just felt that there was this darkness there. And it was very hard for me to be calm and to even breathe. Like, all my breath was stuck in this part of my body. Like, I couldn't really breathe deeply. And it was just, there was a darkness. It was very palpable. And I go into my basement where I work, answering phones for tech support. And I saw the stuff that was happening on this YouTube thing. I had no idea really what YouTube was. I thought it was just a place where you put videos, but there's all these communities and stuff. And I was going through and looking at all the responses to what was going on at Evergreen, and people were recutting the footage, and people were making a big deal out of it, and talking about social justice, and talking about hyper progressivism and leftists and stuff. And they were just like basically ridiculing the students, ridiculing George Bridges, and it was just ridicule, and it was interpretation, but people didn't actually understand what was going on. Nobody was talking about what happened before the protest. Nobody knew. And I had watched it develop over the 4.5 years. So what I did was to mock, and you can go back to my first Evergreen video. I just had my phone out there, and you can actually see I wasn't that bad of a speaker. I've grown a lot better as a speaker and as somebody who talks into a camera to imaginary people on the other side of the camera. But you can see in my body language, you can see in my breathing that there was a lot of stress. I was going through a lot of stress, and so partly I did it to relieve that stress. Partly I did it to try to start to dig into the actual narrative of what the college-aged students had been taught and how that fueled and formed the basis of their protest and all their claims. And so I started talking about that. And that video, it got a bunch of attention. And so I'm like, oh, well, I got all these attention. I got all these followers. So I'm like, I'm going to do some poetry. And people were making fun of my poetry. So I just started thinking, well, you know what? I worked in the media department for 4 years. 3.5, 4 years I worked in the media department. So I had actually been on camera for a lot of events where this stuff was being taught. And so I just I did the math and I found those videos on YouTube, and then I used my connections in the college to figure out where those videos were, and I started to lay out as best as I could. And it's pretty crude in the beginning. I started to lay out as best as I could the underbelly of social justice at Evergreen, the underbelly of the protest. And that's kind of what got me on this whole kick. So, take a break. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for asking that question. Thanks for your encouragement. I do appreciate the criticism. I really do appreciate the encouragement. Thank you, guys. Who's my favorite Nazi? If it's not Heidegger, then who? Who's my favorite Nazi? Are there good Nazis? Do I have a favorite Nazi? Do I have a favorite Nazi? I don't even know how to make sense of that question. I don't think I have a favorite Nazi. Unless it's a favorite villain. I don't know enough Nazis to have a favorite. I don't know if I like Heidegger or not. I really don't know if I like Heidegger or not. There's this poet, Paul Celan, who is, I think, a student of Heidegger's. And his poetry is absolutely the most impossible poetry to read. And you really have to connect to the depths of nihilistic despair in order to start tangling with his poetry, because his family was eradicated by the Nazis. And Paul Celan, there's a story, I'm going to remember it wrong, but there's a story of him going to Heidegger and talking to Heidegger because they had some sort of relationship pre-war, I believe. And Paul Celan tries to get Heidegger to budge and to open up and to apologize. Heidegger never apologized. And that's the thing. I love, tangent, but I'll get back to Heidegger. I love Nietzsche. I absolutely love Nietzsche. He really helped me a lot to gain distance, too much distance from my faith. But I had to gain that distance in order to own my own faith, right? Philosophize with a hammer, right? Nietzsche. But while I was reading Nietzsche, and while I was actually living out Nietzsche, I was in the back of my mind that this is the guy who drove himself crazy, right? Whether it was the physical properties of syphilis or whatever, or if he had a brain tumor, or if he was destined to that or whatever. This is the product of somebody who ends up where he ends up, right? Sobbing on the back of a horse, or hugging a horse, sobbing, which is an absolutely beautiful image. I could cry about that right now. Actually, last night I was crying about a fucking octopus. I'd open a jar of baby fishes or something. I just started crying. I don't know. Something about animals, right? And so, while you're reading Nietzsche, you have to really look at the outcomes of these thinkers. You really have to judge the philosophy about the fruit, right? And even hemlock, right? Any poison, any toxin is potentially a great benefit. Any toxin is potentially a medicine, right? But you have to be very wise about the end of that medicine. So, insofar as Heidegger was unable to be open about his collusion with the Nazis, that casts a shadow over everything he thought. I don't think it's necessarily discounted, right? He was part of the conversation about phenomenology, which I think is important, but you can't necessarily, I'm always going to keep him at a distance. Not because Nazis itself, right, which is horrible, right, but the fact that he could not recognize that and come out and have the humility of saying that he was wrong. Anybody who can't say or admit that they're wrong is really holding, there's something wrong that they can't say that they're wrong. And that throws their thought, their confessions, let's say, and it throws a shadow over that. That was a long thing. Sobbing on a horse. Sounds like a party. Kaylee Blue. I'm looking at the scrolling of text. Heresy. Alice is my favorite alt-right neo-Nazi. Does that count? Throwaway is never wrong. Lubo talks. Damn, this is tough for us old guys. But what I wanted to say was thank you for the fun and the learning. I think you, Ben, Joe, and Jacko are on the cusp of something new and exciting. Could somebody tell me who Jacko is? And is Joe Rogan the Joe that you're talking about? I want to connect with these guys. What do you guys think about these interviews? These interviews I am doing, they get lower views, and I'm fine with that. I don't necessarily want a super bunch of views. I'm fine with that because the interviews, they last an hour. It's not going to get a lot of traction. That's fine. But what do you guys think about the interviews? And let me know either in this comment feed or afterwards or through private messaging on Twitter. Let me know who else I can interview that would stretch me and widen me. Jocko Willink. I don't know who that is. I'm very ignorant about very many things. Greg Wolf says, you interviewed an Evergreen alum who talked about in-group bias. He said we have a very strong in-group bias to people who think like us, even stronger than people who look like us. Interesting. Was that Juan Carlos? I can't remember that off the top of my head who said that. But I've interviewed 2 girls and 2 guys, probably more, but this is the only people I can think about right now. But I wonder who actually said that. Louis the Quiet. I'll try once more before I get ashamed of asking. Did you get a chance to take a look at my email about music? I did, and I was looking at that on my phone, and SoundCloud wasn't looking. Thanks for reminding me. I will actually listen to your music. I want to take you up on that, or at least talk to you about that, because this documentary does need music. Absolutely needs music. So thanks for reminding me about that. You sent me an email. After this, I'm going to take a quick note. I will listen to your music. I keep on forgetting to do that when I'm at my desk, because for whatever reason, SoundCloud's not being friendly to my phone. Louis LeQuay. All right. Erik Weinstein, Brett Weinstein's brother. That's part of a sentence. Love the interviews. Don't like it when you vape during them, if I'm honest. Is it disturbing when I vape? I've been charging my vape. It's right here. I need to change the fluid membrane thing. It's kind of sour. Anyways, ooh, that's nice. Sorry to vape. But you're right. It's unprofessional. You listen while you paint. Soraya. Very sorry about the name, Ms. Bradley. I would like to see your paintings. Text them to me in a DM or mention me somehow. I did ask Erik to interview him or work on his thing. He never got back to me. I will try again through Brett to get Erik Weinstein on my show. I am very aware that I'm very small fish. I'm very small fish. I'm actually very glad that this whole intellectual dark web thing happened now or a couple weeks ago, because I don't want to be a part of a group, but I do want to mac on the fish that are going up the ladder, right? I don't want to be a big star or anything like that. I just want to be able to do something interesting, right? So I don't necessarily want the spotlight. I just want enough in order to get good work done. So that being said, Erik Weinstein, I could see how he wouldn't want to interface with me because I'm very small fry. Just like Jordan Peterson. I know Jordan Peterson knows about me. I know he does because he's tweeted a couple of my videos, my interviews and stuff. Eventually I'll get him on. I'm trying to figure out how to approach him in a way that's nerdy and interesting and something that he doesn't normally talk about. And I think I have that, but we'll see. That will happen someday, maybe, or I'll just pay the $200 to have a session with him online, and we can crowdsource that all together. I'll put in $100. You guys can raise the rest of it. We'll just like buy Jordan Peterson's time, put him on my channel, get him to talk about what I want him to talk about. Bro, we can't share links in your chat. All right. I don't know how to fix that, and I'm not going to do tech support right now because that's bad form. I do plenty enough bad form, right? I think maybe if I go over here to the manage moderators, participations, toggle, timestamp. I don't know. There's no way to do this. I'm going to stop doing tech support. Tell me what you guys want to hear. Ask me a message. Brett and Heather seem like fun people to drink beer with. I'd love to ask him about evolution. Brett and Heather are absolutely fabulous people. They're wonderful people. Their careers took a huge hit, right? I'm sure they'll be fine, but they suffered a lot this past year. And so I always feel weird saying this, but being friends with them has been like the greatest gift. One of the greatest gifts. Well, actually being friends with all you is greater because there's more you than them. But getting to know Brett and Heather and chatting with them on, just on wine drinking terms has been wonderful. And yeah, I've been reading about this evolution stuff. It blows my mind. Totally blows my mind. And my favorite Twitter friend, whose nationality I won't bring up. I don't know why I want to bring it up. It just sounds so cool. Her nationality is so cool. Or her ethnicity or whatever. I won't bring that up. She's sending me links because she's awesome like that. So you guys we can just thanking that we don't need to worry about you not being able to. Hold on. Rob SCFC7 says, you're overthinking, Ben. I've always been overthinking. Big fan of your Evergreen analyses, but please rein it in, my friend. Been a subscriber for quite a while. I'll try to rein it in. I don't know where I'm thinking too much. Just let me know. Be specific. I can change. I do overthink things. Somebody has been retracting a chat message, and it's not me. I'm not the one who's retracting these chat messages. When do I wear costumes? You love my videos with them. Well, Alexander. Sorry about the mispronunciations. I just throw them on randomly, and I get a lot of flack. Actually, I know that if I didn't wear them, I would be more, respectable, and that would that they're keeping me from ascending the Great Ladder and stuff. And I'm fine with that. I just put them on randomly because I have a best friend who keeps on sending me them, and so I just put them on. There's no really rhyme or reason except for ex post facto. There's always kind of like a reason you can see why I do it, but it's usually hidden in some sort of pun or visual metaphor or something like that. I just put them on randomly. I don't know why. There's some reasons why, but it's like a writer explaining to you what they do. It's like either you get it or you don't, or they're just bullshitting. So I just don't like explaining what I do. But thank you. It's nice to know that I'm not alone of having fun with that. And I do want to say this. I do have to say this. The pirate episode that I did. Oh man, I really messed up on that episode. I'm not going to overthink this. I just want to say this out loud to you, since you're listening to me. I did an episode dressed as a pirate, and I went through this document that George Bridges' external independent committee released that completely exonerated him of all wrongdoing and blamed Brett Weinstein for all wrongdoing, and went through and interviewed only people who agreed with the protests. It's the most egregious document that Evergreen has produced. It is the biggest stain on this administration of all the documents that I've read, this one document is the worst document. Period. Like, you go through it. They even say that Evergreen students aren't smart enough to think on their own. They're no longer smart enough to do actual independent work, right? That Evergreen College is no longer about actual pursuit of excellence. That's what they say in this document. They completely throw away the entire legacy of Evergreen, right? Which is already besmirched. But they do it right in the open. They release it April 1st, right? The video that I do on that, I'm hamming it up. I totally botched not this interview, but this discussion. I go through and I read the whole thing, and I ham it up. That was the one that I should have been absolutely on the nails. I'll probably have to redo it, because that document, that video, I don't want to go viral myself, but that video or that document needs to absolutely be out there right in front. And I kind of botched that up. Not to overthink. I just want to say that. That's fine. We all just do things randomly. That's that. Let's talk about something else. I just heard about this Samantha Bee situation, and Microsoft Office wants me to update. I'm going to cancel that. Cancel you. I'll have to look into that, but God. Let me say this. Roseanne Barr, Samantha Bee, Bill Maher, these comics, right? They say offensive things, right? They just say offensive things. They say things that are offensive, and because they get a reaction that they want, which is laughter and attention. That's their job. That's why they're there. Now, whether or not the jokes are actually funny or not, it's rather subjective. But Samantha Bee is actually a shrill kind of harpy. And I did an episode on her. Could barely stand listening to her. Barely got through that. But I spent like all day. I have like a 20 or 40 minute video deconstructing 5 minutes of her talking. So I go through point by point, right? So, I interacted with her. Not funny at all. Maybe she is, but she's not funny. I watched her again. She's just not funny, right? So we're not judging people on whether or not they're actually doing their job, bringing laughter into the world. We're basing them on this weird rubric, this weird calculus that is all about political correctness, right? Which is all subjective. It's all subjective. So who you end up hating ends up being the person you either disagree with. Well, it ends up being the person you disagree with. And the person that you end up defending for saying the exact same thing with the word changed is the person that you agree with their position that you agree with. So just like disbanding people and besmirching their names and canceling their shows or whatever, it gets our jollies off, right? And they're up there in that arena, so they're open to that. I'm open to that too. I'm open to that. I'm gonna make a big fail. When I'm big enough to fail, I'm going to make a big fail. And how am I going to recover from that? Like, that's why I don't grope women. That's why I don't do it, right? Because you never know what's going to get you in the end. Groping women's one of them. But maybe that'll come back in fashion in 10 years. Who knows? Who knows? So, look into the Samantha Bee thing, but that's just my thoughts about how we pillory the entertainers, especially the comics. Show. All right. Who's talking? Yeah, Patria. I don't watch TV. Comcast wants me to subscribe to their TV. I don't do it. I try not to torrent anymore. All right, Comcast, really trying not to torrent anymore. Thanks for sending me those MP3s. Kaylee Blue, I liked the new Roseanne show, but she wasn't trying to be funny. She was making a personal attack. See, that's the thing. I didn't actually go through. I haven't actually researched this thing. I just see the reactions. What I usually look at, what my show's usually about, is the reaction to things rather than the events themselves. But I could look into that and be better informed with what I talk about. Grope away. You need to practice that soft touch. Yeah. It's just dangerous. I had a song about that on Evergreen when I went to Evergreen. It goes like this. I'm not going to be in key. College girls with pajama bottoms. You want to love them, but they give you problems. That didn't come out right, but that's the song about groping college girls. Will humanity become extinct in 100 years? Define humanity. Convince me that it's not extinct already. What do you call an elephant crossed with a hippo? Hypophant. Hypocrite. No. Elipo. Lipo. Joke's funny. She does look like a damn monkey from the movies. Please remove stick from S. Right. I'm going to read that out loud. Just showing it. All right. I think I've been doing this for about an hour. I don't have any other material to read. I'm not going to read my sacred poetry. And, I have this episode I'm going to do. Oh, I have this episode. So, the colleges in the Puget Sound are now basically running with the idea that grammar is racist. So colleges are no longer teaching people how to speak business English because it's too white. So these college students are paying to be able to get into industry, and they're not being taught skills, right? So they actually have to go through college, be catered to, and then pay a bunch of money to tutors to actually get their resumes accepted. So I'm going to do an episode on that. I should do a little bit more research, but there's this article on that from the person who's proponent. Grammar is white. White is wrong. Grammar is white. White is wrong. Where did this stuff all begin? Seriously. Where did this stuff begin? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if you actually think this through, I guess they're not thinking it through. There's got to be a way to think this through. So this is the thing. Go back to what I was talking about. Like, yeah, I don't understand why young people especially are attracted to social justice. And I care about that. What I want to understand is what the people who are promulgating this stuff and teaching this thing are actually thinking. If they're actually thinking to the end of this, like, what are they actually doing? I tweeted this earlier. Imagine how awesome it would be for a group to come together based on an intersection of masteries rather than an intersection of identities. Who would win in that contest, right? Imagine if the Marvel superheroes were just like, Captain America's like, he just runs around, America, right? And Black Panther guy's like, Wakanda, right? That's all they do. They just run around. Iron Man's like, technology! Spider-Man's like, teenage angst, right? They just run around doing that. They don't actually do anything. They don't help anybody. They're just like, identity! Identity! I don't know what I'm doing, but identity! Technology is better than America. No, Wakanda's better than America. It's like, what kind of movie would that be? What happens when Thanos comes around? I don't know what Thanos is. He's like, I am Apocalypse. He just wins the game, right? 20 years ago, I was in Canada going to Bible college. I was sitting there. I was having my third cigarette. It was blowing my mind, right? Did you ever have a third cigarette? You're just on a bench in Canada. It's fall, so it's not too cold. And you're smoking, and all that nicotine absorbs somehow into your body, like past that brain-blood barrier, whatever. And I could see for miles. Really could. Just like, whoa. Really see far. And there's these kids. Because I was at a park, smoking at a park. I don't know, you can do that in Canada. Maybe not anymore, but I could back then, 20 years ago. 2 decades. It's a long time. Laws change. So there's these kids on the jungle gym. They're playing like that game, like the oldest game in the book, right? I'm this. I'm that. I'm this, right? I'm the Hulk. I'm going to smash you, you know? They're playing superhero. Well, I'm Iron Man. I'm just like laser rocket you with my precision hardware, right? And they're going on. It's getting more and more intense. And this one kid climbs to the top. Like the jungle gyms that they don't have anymore because they kill people. If you're stupid, they kill people. Or unfortunate, let's say that. No moral. You know, if you die, you die. Not necessarily your fault. Just you probably weren't competent in the jungle gym. Anyways, this kid climbs to the top of the jungle gym. All his friends are like, I'm He-Man, right? I'm Skeletor, right? This kid climbs to the top of the jungle gym. He's like, well, I'm Jesus Christ, and you're all going to hell. And he just won that game, right? I don't know if that was identity politics or not, but he won that game. Nobody could one-up him there, at least in Canada 20 years ago. But the game now is totally different. All right, going back to this this thing, Benjamin. I had a few single malts myself tonight. Intersection of technology. Well, a lot has changed. The void must be filled by something. Enter social justice. You know, this is what I'm thinking. I don't want to get on this religious thing. I'm not going to get on this religious thing, but for the mass of humanity, a belief system is necessary. It's absolutely necessary for just a mass, not individuals per se, but a mass. And which, I mean, the way that individuals will network into each other is through a system of shared belief, right? So without the church, right, without a system of belief that's based on morals, without inner content that somebody could go through to the next step with, right? Where do you go when you're in church and you're like, okay, I accept this, but it's shallow. Where do I go from here? If you're in Christianity, if you're in Islam, if you're in Buddhism, right? Most of these ancient structures, if you want to go to the next level, there's tons of places to go. There's a lot of places to go. And where do they necessarily lead? So, social justice, on the surface, you're like, okay, I feel belonging. Where do I go next? What? Where do you go next with social justice? You tear down the freaking hierarchies. Like, that's the next step. It's direct action. It's not contemplation. It's not self-betterment. It's world betterment. And where does that lead? A bunch of people who don't know themselves trying to tell everybody else what to do. So, just the round. I don't know what that means. Religion needs nihilism. I don't want to talk about nothing right now. I'm not going to talk about nothing. I want to talk about God or everything or nothing. I talk about something. We could talk about anything if you want. That's a whole other thing, though. Kaylee Blue, thanks for being here the whole time. I don't know how social justice, as we know it, started in academia, but online was just a way to create a pecking order many moons ago on places like LiveJournal. We don't really understand what the internet's done to us. I think I was talking to somebody that I interviewed, or maybe it's just live, like where my brain chemistry is totally switched. I can read books through my ear, but I can't do it through my eyes anymore. I'm rewired. It's really difficult. I have to read, I don't have it here, my favorite book that I've read like 10 times. I still don't understand what it is. It's the most densest piece of writing ever. And eventually I'll be good enough to actually make an entertaining video about this thing. But that's the one book I can read. And it's very small. It's 4 lectures by Paul Ricoeur called, what's it called? Something about interpretation theory. The Surplus of Meaning. It's a freaking brilliant book, and it leads into all of his other books. I love that. I love meaning. I love story. I love interpretation. That's what I want to talk to Jordan Peterson about. Just get him down. Let's talk geeks. Let's talk about stories. Let's talk about archetypes, right? My question is, are there stories that are ancient? And are there stories that are new? Are there true stories that are new? What does the creative person do when they want to interact with archetypes? Do they just retell stories? Do they recast them into interpretation? Do they just translate story into meaning, right? Or are there different new arrangements that we haven't seen with these archetypal things? That's what I want to know. His version on it. I believe that there are, but I want to know his thing. Rabbit Cat. I know. I'm here. I have a hard time hanging out with people. No, I don't. I'm getting better being around live people. I'm getting better, thankfully. But it's nice to be in my own head with other people in my head, too. Just a bunch of voices in my head. Michael Piscerino, thanks for the money symbol. That really means something. I don't even know if it's for me, but I'm going to take it. I'm going to, smudge some money symbol and feel rich for a minute. Michael Piscerino, title, are you talking about the Paul Ricoeur? I think it's Surplus of Meaning. Interpretation, what is it? I don't want to run out of the room. I'm going to finish this beer, and then we're going to wrap this up. Oh, Ninjale! Ninjale. Do I play video games? I really, really, really want to play video games. But I can't. I really want to. I don't have any time. And then I buy a video game, and I don't want to play it. I'm going to play when the WoW expansion comes out. I will spend 2 weeks. No, I can't do that because I have you guys. I have to serve you guys. I can't just spend 2 weeks in a video game because that's what I would do. Just buy the expansion, play it for 2 weeks straight, right? Just get my Fritos, Doritos, Cheetos, whatever, and just play that. Play the heck out of that. and just get to max level and then get completely bored with it and just see how the mechanics run. But I wish I could play video games. Okay. Favorite World of Warcraft characters. This is the secret of Benjamin. My first character I got to max level was a freaking shaman. And this was in 2011. No, it was 2007. It was 2007. It was right after the Burning Crusade. I leveled a freaking shaman all the way up to max level, and I was a healer. And we got stiffed. You get all the way to max level, you're like, wait, shamans suck. But I think everybody felt that way. This is the problem with video games. You can't be God, but you want to be God, but some other human being's God, so you get angry at them for not letting you be God. The only way to be God is be a video game maker, not a player, right? So that's why people get to max level and get really bitchy on the internet, because they want to be God without putting in the work of actually doing the work of being God. Anyways, so I leveled up a shaman, and then I leveled up a warlock all the way to max level, and I fell in love with just dying. My warlock, I just died. Like, it was fine. I just died. I don't like dying as a shaman, but I just leveled up and I died. I started getting into PvP. But then, my favorite character, I think the best part of WoW was Alterac Valley. I'm sorry if I'm losing a lot of people right now. My favorite moment in WoW was as a shaman, max level, Alterac Valley, which is this, it's a BG, it's a battleground. And there's like 100 or 200 people playing this game. There's 2 teams. And this game would not end. And it was the middle of February, and we're in the freaking mountains, and it's snowing in the video game. I felt so cold. I felt so cold in the game and in my body, and I'm just there. And I healed like 3 million healing points. I healed a huge amount. It was just crazy. I was so inside that virtual world, that moment. Second favorite thing, I'll start talking about this very niche product, World of Warcraft, which probably everybody's heard about because it's not too niche anymore. Was playing a rogue, just leveling purely in battlegrounds, and just all I did was camp the flag and run the flag and die or not die. And I'd just be there invisible. It was just so peaceful. I'd just be there. There would be all these enemies all around me. I'd just be really quiet. And I wait. I grab the flag and I just run. And then I either die or not die. That's all I did. I don't know why. That was just so... It was so nice to be invisible. I think it was psychological. I didn't want to be alive right then. So it was nice to be invisible. Oh, I'm missing Kaylee's... I'm going to go through... I loved healing. I absolutely loved healing. That's how I, in group, I'd heal. The cool thing about healing is you're keeping everybody alive, and you can eat ice cream while you do it, if you get Healbot or another mod, right? So you just like be there, and be eating ice cream, and saving everybody's life. It's perfect. It's a great video game. Yeah, let's stop talking about Warcraft. Because I know there's only 5 of us left. Yep, that's right, Kaylee. Yeah, invisibility. I always thought, it's a very standard, it was a party question 10 years ago, like, what's your superpower? And, like, people either want to fly or be invisible. But for some reason, I thought the best power would just be to walk through walls. It's not that great, but, like, you just walk through walls. I mean, it's so freeing, right? You can't fly, right? But, like, there's nothing up there. It's all right here, And being invisible, yeah, I get it, totally get it. But walking through walls, I mean, come on. No obstructions. Everybody would disagree with me in those games, though. All right. Pinochet, I'm not going to Pinochet, who I still, unfortunately, haven't looked up your username. I'm not going to start from the beginning, but if you can ask me any question, I'll try to answer it. Favorite South Park? I'm sorry, I don't want to say this. South Park doesn't hit me the right way. I totally respect the show. They're freaking brilliant. It doesn't hit me the right way. I can't really watch it. But their WoW episode is fabulous. I watched that several times. Yeah, I never played D&D. Teleportation would be cool. For those tuning in, I'm just reading the chat. I'm waiting for Pinochet to ask me a question. Because it's all you. This is your question. This is your magic question. Make it count. Boxers or briefs, man. Boxers or briefs right now. I was shopping for underwear today online. Freaking expensive. Freaking expensive. Not going to pay $24 for a single piece of underwear. Not going to do it. I'm not. I never met Matt Groening, but I met his niece. His niece-in-law. Actually, I went to Paris with his niece-in-law or something like that. Like his younger relative. She knew him. We were in Paris together. She played ukulele. And we went out and drank cider in the middle of the day. I'm not... Show. Go Commando. Can't do it. Can't do it. Doesn't work for me. South Park has always been too cringy for me. Yeah, boot face. I don't want to diss anybody who likes it and stuff. I just... it's just too crude. I don't like... Oh! David Rich. I've had 2 over the course of 2 hours now. This is a Fremont. It says Seattle, Earth, Sun, Summer. American Pale Ale. It's okay. It's kind of nutty. Prefer the IPAs. Don't ask me why. Do I like to canoe or fish? I have a hard time doing things with my body, which I need to take care of because I'm starting to get fat. For me. I'm starting to get out of shape. You do fine under pressure, man. Just like freaking, just, come on. Just like coup d'etat or coup d'etat. Whatever. Just coup it, man. Just coup. Giselle, what do you think that will happen if we keep letting the staff of colleges brainwash kids like those on Evergreen? How to reverse their mentalities later? Okay, the kids are going to burn out on it. And actually, I was talking about this to one of my interviewees. I think that the people of the same age as the people who are protesting right now are going to get really sick of being policed. But they're not going to have the skills to shut it down. So our job is to give them skills to shut it down. What we have is a bunch of baby boomers. No, actually, what we have is a bunch of Gen Xers. We have a bunch of people my age controlling everything. And my age is a bunch of spoiled brats. We want everything to be great, but we don't actually want to do the work to get it there. So that's that. I don't know what to do. But that's why I fight my fight, even though I could do a lot more work understanding the opposition. Bootface, how many folks from Evergreen are you still friends with? I have one of my best friends from Evergreen, and there's a couple other people. I don't have a lot of friends. Alexander. Why is there a J there? I love you. Good night. Have a good night. Sleep well. I hope you dream something awesome that doesn't completely throw you off, but gives you a hint of what's coming your way. The coming time. Ying Long. Been your May boys. The best way to deprogram them is to play into their victim complex and say that social justice victimizes them and use this as a basis. I've tried that tack. I think we can do more work on that tack. Definitely. Absolutely. For sure. For sure. Someone is going to screenshot me and say I'm Heil Hitlering. I'm already right. Jimmy Goodman, I know enough about what you're talking about to know that I shouldn't talk about it. Good try, though. But I don't really know what you're talking about. But I know enough to know what you're talking about. Oh. Do I see a favorable outcome to the Marxist rot on campus, or will complete destruction be necessary? Guys, there is a huge problem in campuses. There is a huge problem in campuses right now. Jordan Peterson was taken to task for saying that we should defund universities, which is easy to take him to task on that, right? If you just think about it, somebody not knowing what's going on, right? Like, oh my God, this guy's so anti-intellectual. He's the opposite. Look, he wants to defund universities. No, he doesn't. He wants to fund things that are actually useful for society. I'm not putting words in his mouth, and I don't want to be a fanboy, but I think a crisis needs to happen. And it doesn't have to be like a meltdown crisis and stuff, but we're headed to a meltdown crisis. if we don't get people who know how things work. How things feel is fine. It's great. There only needs to be so many poets. As we know, 99 out of 100 poets suck. We don't need 1,000, 10,000 poets. We don't need it. And that's all this social justice is. It's just poetry. That's all it is. It's just poetry. It's just feeling. And most of it sucks because it's not really deep and tied into things that work. So, yeah, we are in trouble. And I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm going to keep doing that, even though if I come off too bitchy and repeating myself too much, I'm going to keep on working at this. Hopefully we'll get bigger speakers on my channel, grow my channel, and get some good ideas in here. Because I, like you, are solution-oriented. Sigh. Thanks for the question, Pinochet. The problem with the Evergreen students is that like 2% of them were acting like kids, but they got all the cred. That's the tragedy of Evergreen. Nobody pays attention to the people who actually do the work. They only pay attention to the people who fuck up, including the freaking admin. And by that, I don't mean, yeah, we're all paying attention to the admin fucking up, but the admin just wants to make the college a college of fuck-ups. I don't know enough about Marx. I really need to start reading about that. Tracy K. Feather Spear, hi. Tracy K. Is it really early for you, Tracy K? Are you having breakfast? Oh, Pinochet says that you got a man crush on Stuart Card, or Mr. Hughes from last week. Stuart's pretty cool. Guys, I gotta wrap it up. It's been an hour and minutes, and I'm running out of the juice that allows me to make things happen in my mouth. And I should start cooking dinner for the lady whose hat I'm wearing. No, you're half asleep, but trying to make sense. You're so cool. Let's have scones sometime. Must have been Stuart. Jimmy Goodman says, course. All right, I got to wrap it up. You guys have any last questions for me? Thanks for doing this. See you, Bobby. Thanks for the questions, man. Thanks for tuning in. Let me give a shout out to everybody who donates to my Patreon and through PayPal. If you guys want to sign up for like a $1 a month thing, that'd be great. This is great. It's actually excellent. It's helping me actually build a stronger case and branch out and stuff. Night, Tracy. So I just wanted to give a shout out. Ben, should all people be at least 5% gay or 5% straight? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, we should sign off here, guys. You're great. Thanks for letting me chat. Thanks for talking. Thanks for this string of words. String of love. Be great. I'll have another one of these. We have a slow cooker again, but I have to do the frites, potatoes. I'll post a video in another couple days. I got to write this Evergreen documentary. So freaking complex. And we'll see if I can get some awesome interviewers on. So once I post this, let me know if there's any interviewers, any people that I could interview that would be about my level who would accept having me on their show. We can grow what we're trying to do here, because this is just about much about you as about me. Good night. Sayonara. There's no cats. I'm not going to get them, but they're in the next room.